Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a man named Peter who lived by the sea. Peter was an apostle of Jesus Christ. There's a lot to learn from the life of Peter. But what about Peter's wife? What did Peter's wife think about Peter running around with Jesus all the time? Well, since Jesus had healed her mother, she probably loved Jesus just as much as Peter did. And the story of how Jesus healed Peter's mother is found in Mark chapter 1 verses 29 through 31. But remember, Peter and his wife lived in a house by the sea, as found in Acts chapter 10 and verse 6. So by doing that, they probably spent many times together outside walking by the sea and listening to the waves come in and watching them, seeing the ships out on the water, and watching the sun go down into the water at the end of the day. Peter and his wife probably spent many good times together doing that by their house. But what about Peter, the apostle? What can we learn from him? Well, Peter, the apostle, is beneficial for us to know because he was always interested in what Jesus had to do. He was willing to learn and willing to do whatever Jesus wanted. Now I'll give you an example. The time when Peter was out on the Sea of Galilee. They were out during this storm on the Sea of Galilee, and Peter looks out, and they think they've seen a ghost, but it was actually Jesus. He was walking on the water. And Peter sees Jesus out there on the water, and he wants to do it too. Now why is that important? Well, because when we know God and when we love God, we will try to behave more like God. Again, when we know God and when we love God, we will try to behave more like Him. So Peter tries to go out there to Jesus, and he steps out of the boat. Now when Peter stepped out of the boat, his only foundation was his faith in Christ. Peter believed that Christ would not let him sink, that with Christ he believed that all things would be possible. And that is in the Bible. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens us. But anyway, he stepped out of the boat, and his faith was his foundation. Now, when he began to fear, that offset his faith. His fear of the waves and the weather. Now, the Sea of Galilee can get pretty rough. Here is an image of how rough the Sea of Galilee can get, because it's below sea level, below the sea level, and the wind blows it, and it can become very rough unexpectedly. But anyway, his fear, maybe because it was maybe the wind, maybe it was lightning, maybe it was the water, maybe it was anything out in the water that could have scared him, but his fear offset his faith. And when that happened, it caused the foundation of his faith to crumble. And when that happened, he began to sink. Now, basically, what we have to do in order to survive as Christians is that we have to have faith. We have to have faith in order to survive in the Christian world. Our faith is what saves us in many situations of life. We become a Christian because of our faith, but there are things that our faith causes us to do when it comes to obeying the commands of Christ. Like Naaman, for example. Naaman had leprosy, and the Lord's prophet had told him to go dip in the Jordan River. Now, Naaman had faith in the prophet, but he wasn't cured of the leprosy until he went into the Jordan River. Our faith is one thing, our actions are another. It's important to remember that. But by walking on the Sea of Galilee, Peter also proved that our faith does great things, that great faith does great things. and that's found in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 32 through 35. And when we look at all that Peter did in his life, all the things, I mean, yes, he made mistakes. He denied the Lord 3 times. He did several things that he shouldn't have. But when you look at Peter as a whole, what we can take away from the life of Peter is that he was a good man who knew and loved Christ. That's who Peter was. He was a good man who knew and loved Christ.